Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. We are on location live at the historic Taconic Inn Hotel in Manchester, Vermont. And with us, we have a special guest from AWWA Vice President from the Taconic Company, Mr. Randy Moore. Hi, Randy. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
Oh, we're glad to have you. Thanks so much for all your intuitive words last night. It was very, the national update and so forth. So I know in speaking with you before, you have a similar thing of what I do with the podcast of your story. So tell us your story.
Yeah, it's really something that the AWWA board has gotten very intentional about is being able to share our water story with others in the industry, especially the YPs. They're very interested in understanding what was your career path, how did you get to where you are, how do you get to a leadership position. They're very interested in that. So we've decided that we're going to be intentional about doing that, and I love sharing my story.
Awesome.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I really like talking about myself.
Well, that's all right.
Most people do.
There is nothing wrong with that. When you have words of wisdom, and I just retired after 50 years in the industry, and it's been a great run with the the water community. Is I can't say much about it. The people that are in the industry are so passionate, and just like you're willing to share your story, and if you have problems, there's always somebody out there to help you with it.
Yeah, well, this is the one thing I really enjoyed about the water sector is it's just the people.
Yeah.
There's SALTA, there's people. They're doing great work for the community. It's a community service that they're doing, and their passion for it is contagious.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah, so let me start with my story.
Do tell.
I'm excited to share. So I happen to be an engineer by training. I went to what's now called the Missouri School of Science and Technology. My BS is in metallurgical engineering, and my master's in engineering management with an emphasis on corrosion theory.
Oh, okay.
So I've always been interested in corrosion theory, and so working at Taconic, which is a high-performance protective coatings manufacturer. So we manufacture coatings, about an 80% market share in the wastewater sector. So we really focused on this market and have been for over 103 years now. So we're an old family-owned company. But the way I ended up here was I started out of school working in a couple of different positions for 2 or 3 years each until I kind of found my groove, which was corrosion. And I was working for St. Joe Minerals selling zinc metal to hot dip galvanizers, coil coaters. So again, we were involved in protection of steel using zinc and the galvanic protection it affords. From there, that was a Fortune 500 company in a corporate world, and I was a young man, I saw an opportunity for Taconic to develop an independent sales agency representing their coatings. So they sell through independent sales reps across the country, have from inception. And it intrigued me to be able to develop my own sales agency specializing in corrosion protection using high-performance coatings. So we're involved in a number of markets besides water, wastewater, but I did that for 15 years. Really enjoyed working with folks, specifiers, engineers, architects, to how do we protect this infrastructure, whatever it might be, using high-performance coatings. And after that, I left shortly, about 17 years to go for a startup company called Utility Service. And they had developed and pioneered a new asset management model for water storage tanks. And it was really a kind of a new concept. And they've really, I helped them develop in Midwest, became their vice president of market development, and developed a asset management program focused on protecting water storage tanks through the use of high-performance coatings, such that we extend the service life of the tank itself and the coating system itself. I always like to talk about a coating system as a asset in and of itself, protecting another asset, the steel storage tank, or the concrete tank, or the headworks in a wastewater plant.
Right.
And so when you look at coatings as an asset, it changes this kind of the whole way you think about it and look at it. So I got heavily involved in that. We were bought by Suez, so we became part of this huge international firm and brought a lot of new technologies to the U.S. water market. In 1 year, we launched 11 new services and technologies. And it was fascinating to do. But again, my background, my educational background, my interest in engineering, dealing and working with other engineers, technical people in the water sector really came in useful. And so then after helping that utility service grow to the point where Suez purchased them. They became Tnemic's largest customer. So
wow. Okay.
after doing that for 17 years, it was a little bit of a roundabout route. I came back to Tnemic, and so now I'm back at Tnemic. So it's full circle. It's I'm again a child of the 70s.
There we go.
So the Jerry Garcia quote. Recently, it's occurred to me what a long, strange trip it's been.
Yes, it has. Yes, rolling back the calendar, and again, I focused and I distribute this podcast to high school guidance counselors and so forth. So rolling back the calendar, when you were in high school, did you have a career path in line, or in mind, or more engineering side, or tell us how that?
That's a great question. So I can't say the exact path that I traveled was in mind, but I knew I was going to be involved in technical. Didn't even know about technical sales at the time, but I remember clearly in 8th grade in a science class thinking to myself, I think I'm going to be an engineer, and I'm going to go to university. Then it was the University of Missouri at Rolla, and thinking I was going to be, again, watching the Apollo moon launch, thinking I was going to be an aeronautical engineer.
Okay.
But about that time, Boeing in St. Louis, actually before then it was McDonnell Douglas, took a downturn, and they were folks with PhDs in aeronautical engineers driving taxis. And it's like, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Nice.
So I ended up thinking, well, it's a little bit out of the frying pan in the fire. I thought, oh, nuclear engineering sounds interesting.
Okay.
So I switched my major to nuclear. Before I even started, I declared nuclear. And then I thought, well, the problems in nuclear engineering are all materials problems. So I'm going to get another degree in metallurgical engineering such that I can help the nuclear segment with materials because that was really the challenge. And by the time I got to my senior year, the nuclear industry took a dive, and all the nuclear plants stopped and were canceled. And I thought, well, that's not going to be a good career path.
Plan B.
Yeah, which was I just went back to metallurgy. And so I'm 6 hours from a nuke degree.
Wow.
But my interest in metallurgical engineering, corrosion theory really kind of took off while in college.
Yeah. It's funny, metallurgy. My dad was a metallurgist.
Oh, really?
And he was. He started out way years ago. He worked for a small company, which is in Cromwell, Connecticut, that made antique the cap guns, and they coated the cap guns and so forth. And because of his training there, then he got picked up by Pratt & Whitney, and basically he was designing coatings for jet engine blades.
Oh wow,
and so forth. So with the high intensity, but it's definitely something. Now, how did you find your way? You're vice president of the Missouri section. How did you find your way to the Missouri section?
Well, I've always lived in Missouri my whole life. I live in St. Louis,
Okay.
and so I've always worked in Missouri, if you will, lived in Missouri, worked all over. People ask me often where I live, and I'll say, well, I live in the Hamptons, the Hampton Inns. I'm a road warrior in technical sales, and it's been my whole career, and I've enjoyed that. But I took an unusual path to AWWA. So I'm one of the vice presidents of AWWA, an unusual path. Normally folks come up through the sections and through the chairs, which means all the different offices, the trustees, and ultimately become section chair. I didn't do that. I started on the association level MAC, the Manufacturers Associates Council.
Right.
And so I served 2 terms there. And then while there, I joked here yesterday about Jeff Jacheski, who is our current service provider director at large on the board of directors. He happened to be the MAC chair. And then when my term was expiring, my second term, he said, what are you doing next? I said, I don't know. And he said, well, the service provider director at large position is going to open. You should run for that. And I said, what's that? And so that's kind of the message I've been saying is for seasoned professionals like us, help encourage the next generation of leaders by saying, here are some possible paths, right? Consider this, consider that. And so if it weren't for folks like Jeff, I wouldn't have known about these opportunities. Right. And so I went ahead and ran and was successful. And then as a service provider director at large, you're now eligible to run for vice president. Okay. And so I did that. And so for 2 years of that 3-year term, I was vice president.
Nice.
And then rotated off. Those terms expired. Rotated off the board for a year. And then the Missouri section said, well, Randy, we need a new section director. You know how the AWWA board works. You're experienced. We're going to send you back.
Been there and done that.
Yeah. So I went back, and this time as the Missouri section director on the board, and did the same thing, decided, well, I'm going to run for vice president again.
Sure.
So I've had an unusually long opportunity and privilege to serve at the board level and executive committee. So as a vice president, you're on the executive committee as well. To serve of this past 7 years, I've had 6 years on the board, 4 years on the executive committee. That's a real privilege to see the operations of this great association for that long a time. Normally people off 3-year term, you come in, your first year's a blur, the second year you're starting to get your arms around it, thinking about things you might do, and the third year you're lame duck.
Yeah. Well, the thing, but because of that experience and so forth, you've developed a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge, and passing that institutional knowledge on to, again, upcomers in the industry, it's so invaluable.
Well, I have thank you for noticing that. I have a real burden for that. I'm realizing my time is short. I've got some knowledge and some things that would be helpful.
Sure.
I'm really intentional about trying to share that, pass it on. So, and what's interesting is this next generation, they're willing to receive it.
They're like sponges.
Yes, they soak it up.
They're like sponges. One of the things when I retired, I used to teach a class at our high school, which is basically a town technology class. But basically, it was a class premised on real life premises. We taught them how to do web pages. We taught them how to do podcasts. But it was all real life stuff. And one of the things I stress to all my students, do never underestimate the power of networking. Because you never know who you're going to meet, you're going to shake somebody's hand, look in their eye, shake their hand, that you're, I know a guy, and vice versa. It works both ways.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because at this age, again, this age and stage, I've developed a pretty good network over the years. And I find myself thinking, all I really do is connect people. I connect dots.
That's all right.
I have this beautiful 40,000-foot view of the industry and of the association, and someone needs something or needs to know someone, I can probably help them.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can't help them, I know someone that can.
Well, and there you go. It's all in connecting the dots. Now, good. Now, going back to your coding and so forth. Now, you're protecting assets. Is the coating different from protecting the inside of a steel tank versus a cement line tank?
Well, yes and no. So the coatings on the interior, of course, are all NSF approved for potable water contact, and by standard 61. And so they're typically epoxies today. If you look at there's an AWWA standard. I'm serving a number of standard committees and have helped develop a number of manual practices. There's a standard for coating systems for steel tanks, inside and out. It's the D102. I served on that committee in the past. Now I serve on a main tank, they call a main tank committee, that oversees all the tank standards. And so yes, there's coatings, but the interiors are pretty much epoxy with zinc used as a primer. So the industry's adopted that starting in about 1997. Tnemec was the first company to bring a NSF-approved zinc-rich primer. And so you coat it with zinc for the galvanic protection, and then typically epoxy. And the standard today, your choices are how many coats of epoxy you want and how thick. Is all it takes. And then the exterior, there's a lot of different technologies, but there's 13 total systems inside and out. 8 of those involve the use of zinc-rich primer. So the reason that we use zinc is because it works. And understand, all of our standards are ANSI, if you will, certified consensus standards. So this is the industry's best thinking. We come together from diverse perspectives, and we all agree these are our best options for any standard that we produce.
And of course, most all steel tank, there's cathodic protection involved.
Yes.
As far as that.
Well, you can do that too, but with the advent of zinc-rich primers, the cathodic is only the water line below. We actually now can protect all the roof rafters, which are often difficult. Or the roofs with the zinc-rich primer. So it even has a little added benefit over cathodic. So it's become pretty much the standard.
Now, is it different for pre-stressed tanks?
Concrete tanks typically interior and not coated. However, I did some research years ago on raw concrete. Tends to, in certain environments and with certain turnover rates, it promotes the development of biofilm. And so I always tell operators, if you have a concrete tank far out in your distribution system, and you're having water quality, mainly residual maintenance problems, one of the possible solutions is coat the interior, because that rough, porous concrete surface helps harbor biofilm, and it develops and matures. And then, of course, with it, you get the organics. Now you get disinfection byproduct issues and residual loss.
Yeah, for every action, there's a reaction.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, is basically coating the interior of a pre-stressed tank, is that an epoxy also?
Yes,
yeah,
it would
okay,
be.
okay.
Yeah. NSF approved epoxy. Typically.
And that's sprayed on and typically.
Yep.
Okay.
There are other options. There's polyurethanes you can use. We use those occasionally if it's really heavily cracked and if it's moving and shaking a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Concrete tends to crack, but typically it's epoxy.
So how has the regulatory requirements in your tenure in your multiple tasks and so forth driven the industry?
Yeah, quite a bit, as you can imagine. A lot of the drivers are from a regulatory standpoint, and within the coatings industry, the trend has been to remove volatile organic compounds,
Okay.
right? So the solvents we use in coatings continue to be reduced, such that now we have 100% solids epoxies. We've had this technology going on almost 20 years now, but it's really starting to take off because of the regulatory change. And so there's no solvent at all. Or Tanemic, and we're actually ACE 24, we're going to receive an innovation award.
Nice.
I've created the innovation initiative, and I'm current chair of the committee, so it's a little awkward, but our company is receiving the award for our new water-based technology. So we have a water-based zinc-rich primer and a water-based epoxy for tank interiors, and it's first ever NSF approved.
Wow.
Which again will change the industry. All that's driven by regulatory changes in volatile organic compounds, typically.
Yeah, of course, everything is, the EPA and, the public health departments in local states. I mean, you're constantly being bombarded for testing for new contaminants and so forth. And, as you know, testing just add money and stir.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast.
It is.
As far as that goes, but that's great. So, so you live in Missouri. So about your what do you like to do for hobbies?
A couple of different things. I enjoy riding my bicycle.
Okay.
Cyclist, and my wife and I have recently. I've got her interested in fly fishing, so we do a little bit of that. And
did you get down to the Orvis factory?
It's on my bucket list for today. I'm going to check that off. But I've actually been there before. I was at this conference 10 years ago when it was up the street at the Equinox.
Equinox, yeah.
So I'm driving into town. I looked at the Orvis flagship store and I thought, I've been here before. And I remembered it was 10 years. I learned since it's 10 years ago.
Yeah, deja vu.
Yeah.
Goes around, comes around. So.
Yeah.
And kids? You have kids?
Yeah, we have a blended family. We have 6 grown adults, children, and then we're on 8.5, maybe closer to 3/4 grandchildren. So the grandchild phase, I highly recommend.
There you go. You can give them back.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. We're enjoying that. So yeah, we've got a full family, lots of fun there. There's always something going on somewhere.
Sure. One of my alter egos, when I graduated college, I graduated as a music teacher, and I had worked for the water department in our town all the way through high school, through college, and so forth. And I was teaching at a private school when I graduated college, and it was only a 4/5 position. But I was working only 20 hours a week for the water department. I was going in on weekends, rebuilding water meters and all that kind of stuff. And and they paid for my benefits for 20 years, so this was a win-win. So then we had we were a small town, a 3-man board of selectmen, and the new first selectman got in and says, well, either you're working full-time or no time.
Oh.
So at that point I says, well, I guess I'll work full-time for a couple of years. My wife is pregnant with our first child and so forth, and lo and behold, 50 years later, I just retired, and so forth.
Wow.
But it was unbelievable. Yeah, you get to a point. But one of my alter egos, I also own a music store. Okay, so
good.
I have, in that. So, what's your taste in music?
Well, again, growing up in the 70s, I've quoted Jerry Garcia. I'm a bit of a Deadhead, the Allman Brothers, those kind of things. That the 60s. Well, let's put it this way: my satellite radio stations are 60s, 70s, and classic vinyl.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not on any one of those stations, I probably don't hear it.
Oh God. Well, I'm good friends with JMO from the Allman Brothers. He lives in Connecticut, and
nice.
It was amazing. We were doing a benefit in town. They were putting a new veterans monument behind our town hall. So my son was just getting out of the service. He was coming back from Iraq, and the Veterans Affairs Committee always puts reception when a vet comes back and so forth. So I says, well, maybe we can do a concert, So anyway, long story short, I called up JMO to see if he'd come down because I know, being a guitar player myself, so I called in a few friends. So I asked JMO and I gave him a call. Sometimes you never know if he returns your call, and so about a month afterwards, I get this call at 11 o'clock at night. And he says, hello. And he says, Dave, this is JMO here. He says, how the hell are you? I says, hey, JMO, I just, what's going on? I got your message. I said, I didn't think you got it. I said, no, I'm on tour. So I told him, he says, it was going to be a benefit. He says, he tells me, he says, how much did gig pay? I says, whatever you want, JMO. He says, can I get a cheeseburger out of it? I says, yeah. So he came down. We did this concert. And it was great. But he's one of the original members that's still, of course, Dickie just passed. And, of course, Greg is gone and, and so forth. But, it was a great time. It was a really great time. So, anyway. Desert, if you got stuck on a desert island, what food could you eat every day?
Every day. I'm a big pastry guy, so I would say French pastries.
Oh, okay.
The French chef here has been doing some great things. I'm enjoying his food.
Yes, for sure.
So, yeah, it'd have to be pastries. Croissants.
Do you remember the first concert you ever went to?
Yes, it was, with Poco.
Oh.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
High school.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Randy, thank you so much for taking time for sharing your story, your path, and so forth. And it was awesome. Like I say, I get this podcast out and to all of the guidance counselors within the state. And, we're kind of broadening that broadcast out there and so forth. But it's the careers you didn't know about. And, we need to get people into this industry refilling that pipeline.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right.
Well, nice talking with you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of The Careers You Didn't Know About, the future of the water and wastewater industry. And with us in the house here at the historic Taconic Inn in Manchester, Vermont, is Mr. Randy Moore, who is AWWA Vice President and also from the Missouri section. So, Randy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Safe travels back.
Appreciate it.
All
Thank you, Dave.